Cool, cool.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Football Consistency Show. I'm your host, Bob Lung, of course, from Big Guy Fantasy Sports. Always good to have you guys listening out there, both guys and girls. Just great to have you. As always, we're back to normal team this week. We got, of course, me. We've got on the other side of the glass, we've got good friend Rod Rigney, and of course, David Gautieri is joining us as well. Ron, how's things going down in Florida? We are having our last day of Florida-esque weather. Well, Florida-esque weather. It's 70 degrees. It's 75 degrees. For November, that's Florida-esque weather in Canton, but the rains come tonight. We'll go back down into the 50s then for a while. We may have seen our last of Indian summer, but it's been great. We've had about 10 days of it. So down there, 75 degrees is cold. You're wearing a sweatshirt. How's it going down there?
Well, you know just as well as I do, Midwestern weather, it'll be freezing ass cold before you know it. So don't worry about that. That'll happen. Yeah, it's pretty good down here. We did fight off a tropical storm Sunday and Monday. Got a nice day off from school yesterday. So that was good. A little bit rainy, nothing too terrible. So cool. Yeah, pretty normal stuff down here. I'm back. It's nice enough that I'm back out on the patio now, the outside recording studio. Haven't seen any weird alligators or any cockroaches run across my path out here. So I think we're going to be good to go. Looking forward to a good show.
No Bigfoots, chupacabras, anything.
Not that I can see. Of course, it is kind of dark out, so I could be having one staring at me right now and not even know it.
They probably, yeah. Well, he's probably listening because he's probably a big fan of the shows, I'm sure.
It's true.
David, I know you're up in Connecticut. I probably assume it's still warm up there. It's been pretty warm through most of the Midwest and Northeast, right?
A little further. I'm up in New Hampshire.
Okay.
It was I think like 70 degrees again today. It was almost 80 yesterday.
Yeah, no, it's been unseasonably warm, but we will take it when we get it, right? That's Northerners.
Absolutely.
All right. So here we go back to another week. Consistency, good week for scoring. A lot of scoring going on this past week. Quarterbacks are still way up in total points. The clutch factor is still almost 22. I think it's about 21.7. Still super high compared to what it's been in the past. Before we get started, though, I got to tell you, every week I seem to, and I hate to do this to people because I know they're like, Bob, stop whining about your teams. You're supposed to be Mr. Consistency, but this has not been the year for it. And I blame injuries and just everything else goes with it. But, I've had some interesting ways of losing. A lot of times it's been because I play against somebody that just goes off. Like a couple weeks ago, we played against Bob Harris in King's Classic. And, Dalvin Cook went off for almost 50 points and he beat me by 6. Well, this past week in the Scott Fish Bowl, a lot of you folks out there know about the Scott Fish Bowl. Unique scoring always. This year, not only do the quarterbacks get 6 points for their passing touchdowns, but I think they get, I want to say it's 5. It's at least 4, but I thought it might even be 5 or maybe even 6. I thought it might even match. Anyway, super high points against you if you throw an interception. So going into when did Tampa Bay play? Sunday night?
Sunday night, yeah.
Sunday night. Going to the Tampa Bay game, I am only down 20 points. I've got Tom Brady. And then on Monday night, I have, who's the running back for the Jets?
P. Ryan.
Thank you. Jermichael P. Ryan, does that sound right?
LaMichael P. Ryan.
LaMichael P. Ryan, correct.
He's French. Okay.
Yes, he's very French.
It's not good you're relying on someone you can't.
Yeah, which shows you how I had to pick him up off the waiver wire because of, Mostert's hurt, Eckler's hurt, all of my guys are hurt. So I had to start him. But anyway, so I'm only down, I'm only down 12 points going into Sunday night game. I've got Tom Brady left and I've got P. Ryan left. I only need 12 points, 13 points to win. Tom Brady snapped off a minus 12 in that game. Therefore, Monday night, P. Ryan had to score 23 for me to win. Needless to say, he did not.
Did he even get 2.3?
I didn't even look. I didn't even care.
I did because I needed 3 points from him in one league, and I got it, and I was so happy.
Okay,
like,
all right.
Thank the Lord.
All right. Well, thank goodness P. Ryan did so. Yeah. So anyway, I didn't even know about it because, like I said, I just wasn't paying attention, and I usually don't look on Monday mornings anyway. I feel like I don't like to jinx it, and but it just so happened that on the Twitter chat room for our Scott Fishbowl League site, the guy who I was playing against posted and tagged me and told me how dirty he felt when he thought for sure he was done for the week because Brady and P. Ryan only had to combine for 12 points for me to win, and then Brady gets minus 12. So anyway, so that's a new way to lose. I've never lost with. I mean, I think I have seen some scenarios where like a fumble, you get a -2 or something or 3 for a fumble, and somebody had a fumble and I won. I do remember that I did win one time where I was literally losing going into the Monday night game, and somebody had they fumbled on the first play, they got hurt, and I ended up winning by 1. I do remember that. It's probably the luckiest win I've ever got, but I've never lost with somebody as good as Tom Brady getting minus 12 points and then losing after that. So, yeah, so there we go. So there you go. For all you sitting there going, oh, my teams are so I have the worst luck. Yeah, I got some stories for you this year, kiddies.
Well, I was going to say, for the listeners, if you have those kind of losses from now on this season, you can say, well, at least I'm not Bob Lung.
Exactly. There you go. There you go. And if you do get a loss like that and you're listening, email me. I'll give you a free subscription for the rest of the year, VIP.
There you
just
go.
So you can, find some consistency, find something for next year to help you out. So we're here for you. Because I can't do it much with my teams anymore. Even though I did win in one Kings Classic, so I think I'm 4-5. Still got a fighting chance in the Snake League, and not doing as great. I did lose this week, so I played Mike Clay in both leagues. Mm-hmm. Beat his ass in the Snake division like 130-80, and then he turned around and beat my ass in the auction division. So it was pretty fair. All right, so let's take a look at the quarterbacks. As we have all year, we stare at nothing but the top 3 of Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes. Points-wise, it goes Murray, Mahomes, Wilson. Consistency-wise, it's Murray, Wilson at 100%, and then Mahomes at 89%. I don't know what we can say anymore about these two guys. It has already been said. They're both scoring a ton of points. And why are they scoring a ton of points? Because their defense gives up a ton of points. I don't remember the scores of both of their games, but I know both of them, Arizona against Miami and Seattle against Buffalo, weren't both games where both teams were in the 30s plus? Because I think the Miami, Arizona was like 34-31, and I think Buffalo and Seattle was like 45-38 or something. I don't remember.
Here. Trying to find him at the top here. Buffalo, Seattle was 44-34 Buffalo.
Yeah.
And then let's see here. I knew the Dolphins was close. Dolphins actually came out on top 34-31.
31, yeah. Okay. So a lot of scoring in those. So that's why those two are still up there. Mahomes, just does his thing. They're not running the ball very much there. I mean, we'll get to that when we get to the running backs as we watch. CEH's Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been struggling a little bit. Still not bad. Still earning some clutch games. So he's not terrible, but definitely not running the ball. If you thought Le'Veon Bell was going to do anything in Kansas City, you're wrong. Let's move down into the quarterback list. Still at 86% and still just, kind of catching everybody off guard. Justin Herbert, 86%, ninth in total points. I think they had a bye this week, if I'm not mistaken.
No, they played.
Oh, they did play. You're right. Because Keenan Allen had a big week.
Yeah,
right.
Because I had
Raiders,
Justin
they
Jackson.
The Raiders.
That's right. They played the Raiders.
Yeah, Justin Jackson and consistently cashing, and he decided to get hurt on the first play of the game and not come back. So.
But you guys did pretty well, didn't you?
I did not do well. I hope
no?
But I didn't do well at all.
Okay. Because I remember you guys having a lot of Seattle and Buffalo and.
Yeah. Josh Allen kept me competitive, but no, it didn't end up the way that we wanted it to end up.
Gotcha. Okay, that's cool. All right, so there's our top. Again, I don't think we need to talk. So let's start moving down a little bit with some of these other quarterbacks, and let's talk about where they're at. Do we feel comfortable they're going to continue this 75% and 70? Well, we won't talk about Gardner Minshew because he's out for a while. Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, number 5, number 6 in total points, 75% consistent. David, any thoughts on either one of these two slowing down? They seem to be clicking pretty well. Watson seems to be being much more consistent now with Mr. O'Brien out of the picture. What are your thoughts on Ron and Mr. Watson?
Well, I was just thinking about, because I was obsessing over Justin Herbert, and it's funny you mentioned Deshaun Watson. I'm thinking, which guy would you rather have rest of the season? Deshaun Watson or Justin Herbert?
I'd have to look at the schedule, but it's pretty close. I hear you. Yeah. All right, let's look at the schedule. So, Chargers, they're on a bye this week. And we got Denver, Buffalo, New England, Atlanta, Raiders, Denver, Kansas City. Not too many good defenses there. Green Bay, we've got Jacksonville, Indy, Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit, Carolina, Tennessee, and then Chicago week 17. That doesn't really count. So outside of the Indy and Chicago in weeks 11 and 12, pretty easy there too. So, you're talking about Watson. I'm sorry, I looked at Green Bay.
Well, I got their schedule up. So they've got the Browns, they've got the Patriots, the Lions, the Colts twice, the Bears, Bengals, and Titans. So there's a couple of them in there.
The Colts twice is what would scare me the most because their defense
in there too.
Pretty good, and Chicago's isn't bad. I guess I'd have to agree. I think I might go with Herbert for the rest of the season.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, it might be a time to explore a Watson for Herbert trade almost and see if you could get something on top, because Watson still got the name, and someone might give you something small, obviously, but
right. And if you're in a league with Kobe Conway, he'll take Watson for a bag of rocks or anything. He'll give up his whole team for Watson. Yeah. So
it's that time of year. You got to start looking ahead to the playoffs and start looking to move similar players just based on schedule and things like that.
Colby would definitely throw in cash considerations as well, I think.
And pictures of his dog.
Yes.
Absolutely, because it's cute. All right. Good call, David. All right, Ron, so let's take a look at the next group. I mean, Fitzpatrick's out. So we got Breeze, we got Cam Newton, and these guys are at 60% or 63% for Breeze. And then everybody else after this is under 60. We've got Cam Newton, Josh Allen, Tom Brady. Now you start talking about guys like, who do you want? Which of these guys do you want for the rest of the year? I mean, Josh Allen's 4th in total points. Brady's 7th in total points. Breeze is 13th. But, Ron, any of these guys excite you from a consistency standpoint? We know they can put up some big games, especially a Josh Allen in Buffalo. But, man, his consistency of 56% for being 4th in total points, that is not good.
Well, I want to say Josh Allen here, but, we're looking at schedules, and when you bring up the Bills' schedule, so they've got the Cards, the Chargers, the Niners, Steelers, Broncos, Patriots, and Dolphins. So that's not a whole lot to get excited about with Josh Allen. I mean, they've still gotten it done. They've still played well, even though he's had tough matchups. I know he's only around 50% consistent, had a nice week last week. But, of course, I think anybody you put in there that's got a pulse against Seattle is going to have a nice week. So
exactly.
I think on this list, I'm not going to sit here and waste people's time by looking up the other schedules. I think Tom Brady's going to be fine. We've left Tom Brady for dead before, and I think that, when he has these type of games, I as much as I hate to say it, I think Antonio Brown's going to acclimate enough. They got to get Mike Evans going, though. Mike Evans has kind of been on the milk carton this season a lot. Just nobody knows where the hell he's at. And I don't know if you guys saw that stat. I don't know who posted it on Twitter, but Marshawn Lattimore versus Mike Evans last 3 games. Mike Evans in each game, 2 targets, 0 catches. So that tells you right there, Marshawn Lattimore's his kryptonite. And hopefully you're kind of in this range where maybe you got a couple of these guys, and maybe you're fortunate enough. Maybe you got Brady and Newton or Breeze or, Derek Carr's in there, Carson Wentz is in there, Tannehill. maybe you can stream these guys. Hopefully that's what you were able to do, or maybe if you're in a shallow enough league and you have one, maybe you can pick up another one. But I think when you're in this range with this 50% or below, I think you're just going to have to stream some of these guys and hope it works out for the best, because, some of these guys by themselves, like we said with Watson and Rodgers and those guys, they have about 2 or 3 good matchups, but the rest of them are kind of sketchy. So hopefully you can mix and match a little bit the rest of the way.
Well, and another thing we have to think about, and I'm sure David knows this and Ron, you're kind of from the Indy area as well. Weather's going to get crappy. And guess what? Buffalo gets real crappy, especially with snow. And so some of those games Josh Allen's got to play in against some good defenses is going to be like Pittsburgh and he's going to be playing at home. And that's where it gets really ugly, where Brady's in Tampa, you got Breeze in New Orleans, so he's most of the time playing in domes. So another thing to think about, if you've got a guy like Allen and you're kind of disappointed in him, maybe after this big week, it might be time to maybe look for a trade to a warmer quarterback that might be a little bit more consistent down the road based on their schedule. So like you said, definitely take a look at that. David, any more thoughts on the quarterbacks, moving forward, do you think might have a better second half than they've had first half? I mean, Lamar Jackson has nowhere to go but up.
Yeah, and his schedule is cake. I've been writing about it in Gus Edwards, my waiver wire article, the past 2 weeks, so I have it basically memorized. I think they got
Nice.
Dallas. I forget one of them, but I know it's Dallas, Jacksonville, and the Giants. I believe it's maybe Cleveland. It might be the other one.
So they've got New England, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Dallas, and then here is their playoff schedule for week 14 through 16. Cleveland, Jacksonville, and the Giants.
Yeah. So it's good news for Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. So if you're a Lamar Jackson owner, or if you're not, go get him.
And I just want to say one more thing too. While we were talking about like Josh Allen in trades and looking ahead to the schedule, like he also has his bye coming up. So that's another thing you want to take into consideration with players. But also you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to just go chipping away your team just because they don't have a perfect schedule and they have a bye. But if you can find value, you definitely want to at least explore it and see if you can make these sort of lateral moves.
Yeah, definitely for helping, again, for the consistency of your team. All right, let's move into the running back position. We've still got some guys up near the top. Kamara, still perfect, 100%. Dalvin Cook, still 100%, just been on fire lately. Kamara, who was pretty far ahead in total points just a few weeks ago, all of a sudden with Dalvin Cook's back-to-back monster weeks, he's now only 15 points ahead, and he's played one less game than Kamara, so he could take the lead when Kamara goes on by. Aaron Jones still 6 for 6. Of course, McCaffrey came back and got his clutch game, but a little dinged up again, so keep an eye on that.
90 points in 3 games?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Sadly, that's probably below average. It's probably below his average from last year.
RB 26 in total points.
Yeah, and he's only played 3 games. Sadly, when he scored more points than Kenyon Drake,
Wow.
and Kenyon Drake's played 7 games. That is sad. Again, in the 80 percentile, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, James Robinson still up there, 88%. Miles Sanders at 80%, but only played 5 games. So, I really thought that James Robinson might drop off, this past week with the backup quarterback. But, he did okay. What do you guys, we'll go to David first. David, any thoughts on the top guys? We still comfortable with them moving forward? How are we feeling about them?
Well, I'm going to hit on what you talked about with James Robinson, and you have to be less concerned after we saw Luton, or however you pronounce it, have a good game. And he looked decent enough to at least stabilize the offense and to at least hold them above water. So it looks like they're going to be able to function. But I still, again, talking schedules, I don't love it. The last 2 weeks of the fantasy playoffs, they have my Ravens, who, I'm obviously very high on our defense. And then they also have Chicago, who's not great against the run, but still, if Luton struggles, I believe it will take the whole offense down with him, so to speak.
Right.
So I 2 weeks ago, I suggested moving James Robinson for Antonio Gibson plus. Like if you can get Gibson in a flex or Gibson in a tight end upgrade, QB upgrade, whatever. And I still I think I'm on board with that, but I maybe a different guy because of the Alex Smith, and I have to take that in consideration now that I'm thinking about him, thinking on my feet here a little bit. But I still would look to maybe move James Robinson for a guy maybe like a Miles Sanders, who you can absolutely get probably Miles Sanders plus, especially if you're a winning team. But yeah, I'm not thrilled about the schedule down the stretch for James Robinson.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, Ron, let's take a look at the 75 percentiles. We'll throw in even the 71 there with Myles Gaskin. We've got Derrick Henry, Kareem Hunt, James Conner, Deandre Swift, and David Johnson all played 8 games, 75% consistent. Range of points total scored from Derrick Henry, who's 3rd overall, to David Johnson, who's 22nd, but yet they're all still 75% consistent. In that group, Chubb could be back soon, so I assume we'll see maybe a little bit of a downtick for Kareem Hunt, maybe not. But, James Conner's staying healthy. DeAndre Swift, not too bad for a team that's not doing very well. What are your thoughts on that group?
Well, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb came back to practice today, so he could actually, depending on what they see from him this week, could be back this coming week. But that does not mean that he's going to get a full workload once he comes right back. So you might have one more week of good Kareem Hunt production, and then it's going to go back to him being more like a flex play with that timeshare, which still isn't all bad if you can kind of weather that storm and put, you got him and you're able to put him at that flex spot. The other one that's kind of a strange one to me on this list is DeAndre Swift, because I have him in our in the SiriusXM Dynasty. And I went and looked at his stat line, and I was surprised to see when we on our consistency report here that he's top 20 in total points. So I looked at his a little bit, and it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors because he is in the top 20 in points. He is consistent, but he only has 250 rushing yards. So he's being propped up by 5 total touchdowns and 26 receptions. So if you're in a PPR, that's kind of where a lot of that production is coming from. I do like him long term, but it's kind of a weird little stat line there. And then I haven't seen anything about David Johnson this week. I know he went out pretty early with a concussion last week. Don't know if he's still in the protocol or not. So Duke Johnson's a guy that if David Johnson doesn't go, especially in PPR formats, I don't remember who they played this week, but he might be somebody that you might pluck off waivers. But David Johnson just plugging away, and kind of what we thought. We look at him as kind of an RB2 heading into the season, and I think he's been respectable. He's put up some decent yardage totals, some decent catch totals. Not the David Johnson of 3-4 years ago, which I don't think anybody thought they were getting, but he's a nice little RB2 if you got him. So I think it's a pretty solid group, if nothing else. The one that just kind of deceives you a little bit is DeAndre Swift.
Gotcha. All right, David, I'm just going to focus on one player, and I want you to kind of give us your thoughts on him. It's Ezekiel Elliott. He's 4th in total points. He was 6 for 6. He's now 6 of 9 in his clutch games. This Gilbert Godfrey or whoever quarterback this week, did better than I guess some of the others have been, but is it time to trade Zeke? I mean, if you could get something for him, if you could swindle somebody into some kind of maybe bigger trade and like, hey, I'll give you Zeke and this guy, and you give me Josh Jacobs and this guy or something. I don't know, but is it time? I mean, I have him in quite a few leagues, and I don't know. I'm pretty much, if I'm maybe close to a playoff push, I'm still keeping him in there because I got to believe that, something good's going to happen. Maybe, they do get to play the Giants and the Redskins and, they got Minnesota. They're on a bye this week. Minnesota, Washington, but they got to play Baltimore. Cincinnati's not bad. San Francisco, Philly. But I got to get to the playoffs. And the next 3 weeks, you've got to bye Minnesota. Okay, maybe some hope there. Washington, maybe some hope. But, man, Baltimore in week 13. It's rough. What do you do? What do you recommend?
It might be too late, and you might be 2 weeks too late on trying to trade Ezekiel Elliott. If you can still, absolutely. I traded him away. I mean, you basically have to give him away at this point. And honestly, I was willing to do that. If you have the running back depth, like I made this trade last week before this Pittsburgh game, and I had CH, J.K. Dobbins, Chase Edmonds, and Gus Edwards on my bench. And I said, I'll trade Ezekiel Elliott I traded him for Justin. This is a 1 QB league for Justin Herbert and Calvin Ridley. I traded Zeke and DJ Chark for Herbert and Ridley. So
well done.
And this was an injured Calvin Ridley, so I still feel like I was selling low. So
yeah, right.
But I'm ready to roll with CEH, Dobbins, Edmonds, and whatever I can find, on waivers at this point, because there's just, it seems like the ceiling is gone. Not only it looked better with Garrett Gilbert, but he's losing touches to Pollard, and Pollard just looks more explosive right now. Maybe it's just the role he's in that it's easier to look more explosive, but Pollard's certainly demanding a role at least, to continue being involved. So there's nothing to be thrilled about with Ezekiel other than the Week 14 matchup against Cincinnati.
Yeah, which does nothing when you're not in the playoffs.
Unless you can, if you do think you can make the playoffs, and we're talking about schedules, another option instead of just trading away these guys with poor schedules is look and see if you can mix and match. If you have different options on your team, or if you can acquire a different option to mix and match, because you can always say, hey, I'll plan to sit him against Baltimore because I'll play J.K. Dobbins against the Cowboys that week,
Right.
So you can also mix and match these guys as well.
Gotcha. All right, let's move on to the wide receiver position. Travis Fulgham still up there. Travis Fulgham, if you got him, 5 for 5, 100% consistency, still plugging away, being a decent wide receiver, probably a flex for most people, maybe your third, but still not doing a bad job. But of the guys that have played 8-9 games, you still got the big boys up there: Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin. There's a guy right there that just amazes me how well he continues to play regardless of who's quarterbacking. Will Fuller, still healthy. Still just dumbfounds me. Of those boys at the 88-89%, David, what are your thoughts on them? Any of these guys you think will drop off? I mean, can Will Fuller play an entire season? Is that possible?
It's like,
has it ever been done? I guess that's more the
Fulgham, if you got him, same applies to Willer. Like, as long as you got him and he's there, you keep playing him, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just amazing to me that he continues to go out there and stay healthy, especially in a year when like everybody and their mom is dropping, and here's David Johnson, Todd Gurley, and Fuller all healthy. Like
James Conner,
right? Yeah. It's like complete opposite world kind of thing. It's like, man, that's just amazing to me. What are your thoughts on McLaurin? I mean, this guy to me is probably the best wide receiver out there because he's putting up numbers with everybody from Alex Smith to Haskins to Kyle Allen. I think Joe Theismann played a few games. I mean, this guy just continues to produce regardless of who's throwing him the ball. Kind of like when D-Hop was when he was in Houston before Watson. This is kind of what it reminds me of. What do you think about that, Ron?
Sorry, I was just choking on a bug real quick here.
What do you get for food this outside?
I guess so. I need to move into the indoor studio. So I mean, you mentioned Joe Theismann. I think they had Mark Rippon in for a tryout as well.
Rippon too, or his daughter,
breaking out all the stops. Yeah. So I mean, it's cool to see, and I think the one thing that tells you right there is how good of a route runner Terry McLaurin is, because for him to be able to get open and get receptions with the likes of Alex Smith, Kyle Allen, I don't even know who they honestly even have throwing the football. That's impressive. And he's a guy, too, that was, I think, a third or fourth round pick last year, kind of came out of nowhere as a rookie. But I think he's really on his way to being a superstar in this league just because it seems like he's doing all the work for the quarterback, I think. Mm-hmm. And I haven't seen them play a whole lot, but one of the things, when you watch them, he's the guy to watch. And he's a lot of fun to watch, too, because he's just really precise and just has a knack for getting open. And I think that's something that you can't teach. So I don't really see that slowing down, especially in a PPR. He's going to have the targets because he is the guy. He's going to have the receptions. Although, guy that just came back that's very, very under the radar for Washington is Steven Sims.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw the stat line last week, but Steven Sims went for over 100 yards. Now, he didn't have a lot of receptions, but he's a guy that they got a little bit later in the draft, had a few flashes last year. So he's another Redskin that if you can go out and snag and you can kind of hide him away on your bench, like David was referring to with the running backs, he might be a nice little guy to mix and match. But Terry McLaurin's in your lineup each week, no matter what.
Definitely.
So I want to jump ahead here too, right? So
Go ahead, please.
I'm gonna do my best Bob impression. All right. So going down the list here, we've got Devontae Adams, 83%, AJ Brown, 83%, Corey Davis, 83%, Jameson Crowder, 80, Kenny Galladay, 80, Robbie Anderson, 78, Mari Cooper, 78, and now I'm back to David because this is what I want to talk about.
Got it.
DeAndre Hopkins, 150.4. I'm sticking with the trade theme this week. Who's right below DeAndre Hopkins? Basically exact same numbers, 6 for 8, 75%.
Keenan Allen.
Right. Same number of games, same number of clutch games, 0.3 points less. And it's just the name value, right? The production's the same. If you can flip DeAndre Hopkins for Keenan Allen plus, absolutely. This is like the time to do it. This is the time to do it.
Yeah, and you know, if you go down a little bit farther, a guy like Tyler Boyd, who's only 15 points behind and 75% consistent, you may be able to flip Hopkins for Allen and Boyd. And people would probably
spicy.
go,
I like
sure,
it,
yeah, D-Hop, baby, yeah. So, there's a lot of good. I mean, there's definitely, if 2020 has one positive aspect from a consistency standpoint, this year the wide receivers are certainly proving their worth and consistency, and especially the names you drafted and you want to count on and you needed to count on. They're there for you. Running backs, quarterbacks, tight ends, not doing that job this year. A lot of inconsistency in bigger names. But this year they're all coming in. Now they're not setting the world. I mean, Julio Jones certainly is a step slower. He's at 71%. Allen Robinson's down from where he used to be in the past. Adam Thielen's down there a little bit. But like you said, there's a lot of guys who we always promote for consistency in our guide as good values that people always seem to pass on. And David, you hit it on the nail with Keenan Allen. He's one of those guys. Jarvis Landry, until this year because of injuries, was always one of those guys that we always had higher rated because of their consistency, and people be like, he's Keenan Allen, he's okay. And it's like, no, you're missing out on what we're trying to, preach here to the choir. So good call on that one. Ron, let's go down a little bit down into the group there. There are some guys though that are struggling. They're putting up the points, but man, they're struggling consistency wise. And one of them I mentioned already, Adam Thielen at 63%, Mike Evans at 56%, who you brought up. Tyler Lockett, how about this guy? 5th in total points, but only 50% consistency. Do we see any improvement in any of these guys? I mean, now with AB there, I don't see Evans' consistency getting better. Lockett, maybe. Thielen, maybe. What are your thoughts on those guys?
I mean, the Thielen's problem is he's just so, Kirk Cousins is so inconsistent. Justin Jefferson's showing out a little bit. He's living up to the hype for sure. Those LSU wide receivers, seems like they really translate well to the pros when they can get their mind right. Yeah, Odell Beckham, I'm looking at you mainly. I mean, it's a matter of, I think, just more of looking at schedules, looking at more of who they've got coming up. But yeah, Mike Evans is a huge disappointment. I have him in one of my dynasties, and he was one of my 5 keepers. Kind of just because I didn't really have a whole lot else to keep on offense. But I think this is definitely the last year that I keep Mr. Mike Evans. I'm not sure what the problem is there. I haven't really seen the Bucs play a lot. Tyler Lockett, he's had monster games, and then he's had games where he's not shown up at all, but a lot of that, or some of that, I think has to do with DK Metcalf being so solid, at the top of this list for sure. Tyler Lockett's a guy you still want to start. I mean, they're still going to have to throw the ball all over the yard. But another guy I want to point out too, you go a little bit further down to that 50% consistent, you see a guy named David Moore. David Moore is the 3rd wide receiver for Seattle. I have him in Kings Classic. Dude is not the most consistent guy in the world, but he is an awesome little flex player. And especially last week, I should say, he's a guy. Well, this guy's kind of the Steven Sims numbers I said from before. 2 or 3 grabs, 60, 70 yards. If he can get you a touchdown, money. So they're going to have to be throwing the ball. So I think that's hurting him a little bit as well. The DK Metcalf is kind of emerging as that wide receiver number 1, but also David Moore's coming on a little bit as well.
Hey, he's been better than Marvin Jones so far, just barely.
Yeah, he's been better. I mean, you look at some of those numbers underneath there. He's better than a couple of guys that we're kind of counting on this season.
Yeah. So one of the things that I don't have at my fingertips this year, due to the fact that I can't seem to get the person to help fix it, the clutch games by week, which we always had the ability to use and kind of identify who's been hot lately. And it's hard to tell when you're looking at this, but let's talk about another guy that's at 50% consistent. He's 4 for 8. All 4 of his clutch games, the last 4 weeks. Here's his last 4 weeks. Week 5, 11.4. Week 7, 17.3. Week 8, 21.4. Week 9, 26.8. Know who I'm talking about?
I know who it is.
Give us the name.
And I know it's because we talked about him, and you said you were gonna flex him. You were like, "Oh, I can flex Curtis Samuel."
Yeah, that's it.
I got no problem with it. And he has been. He was one of the guys included in the waiver article for this week. And
right, yep, no, good call.
Good
segue.
In 0.5 PPR, he's averaging more points per game than DJ Moore. DJ Less, excuse me.
There you go. Yeah, no, and yeah, he's been he's one of my saviors to kind of help been keeping my team alive in the Kings Classic because I have him as a flex, because I think I have like Juju Smith-Schuster and Chris Godwin. And so, yeah, Samuel's, since we start 2 wide receivers, but we have 3 flex. So Samuel's one of my flex, really been helping me out the last few weeks and getting that 26, 20 some points, So yeah, he's 4 for 4 the last 4 games, after being kind of left out there for a while. And like you said, DJ Moore, and this is with, McCaffrey back. Before he was getting some looks at running back when McCaffrey wasn't playing. But he came back this week. McCaffrey comes back this week, and Samuel goes, gets 9 catches for 105 yards. He did actually still run the ball 3 times for 13 yards, which is surprising. Obviously, didn't get any touchdowns this week because McCaffrey, but
that's the secret. That's the secret to the success is that he has a rushing attempt in every single game he's played in this year.
Mm-hmm. He's averaging 2 rushing touchdowns. Yeah,
I'll say, he's put a couple of them in the end zone too.
Yeah, and he's averaging 2.75 per game. So that's like basically 3 attempts. Is there something just with wide receivers named Samuel who are just good at running the ball? Because we got Curtis and Debo who are just like, it's the Debo bump. Curtis is getting it too. Like, as long as you're getting that kind of rushing volume, it stabilizes the floor and it gives them a whole nother upside touchdown-wise if he can get in the end zone on these little end arounds and such.
Well, I don't know about you guys too, but in Kings Classic especially, I've never had so many games that have been decided by less than 2 points. So if you got somebody like that that's going to get, 15, 20 yards on the ground, I mean, I've had at least 3 weeks where that would make the difference in my leagues.
Right. No, definitely. And like you said, Samuel's been that. Debo's done well at that. It's he was, like you say, he's one that jumped out at me when I like 50%. I'm like, man, it seems like. And I'm like, oh, yeah, because all 4 from the last 4 weeks. So, yeah, I'm still working on my guy. He kind of – anyway, that's not for this discussion. All right, so let's move off to the tight ends. As we said, man, we had so much hope for consistency at the tight end position heading in this year, and, well, it's just not there. But we got a few guys that – we knew we could count on. David, of course, is our draft tight end number 1 if you have to, but get him. And it's worked out well. First place in total points by a mile. Right now it's at...
by a country mile.
57.6 points difference between Travis Kelce and Darren Waller. Yes, there's 1 less game, but still, doesn't matter. 89%. TJ Hawkinson right up there. This is the guy that's probably been the bigger surprise, but, is it, more of a, yes, he's a good player, or more of a, yes, he's a good player. And we've had Kenny Golladay hurt. Jones hasn't been as successful. Running game not as successful, and the Detroit defense stinks. So that's certainly helping quite a bit. Darren Waller, 6 for 8, 75%. Pretty much counted on that. So kind of sneakingly surprising this year. I'll just say quietly surprising. because he had a decent year last year. We gave him a little love in the consistency guide. So, Ron, I'll go to you. It's kind of one of our favorites, Jared Cook. 16th in total points, missed a game. 5 of 7, 71%. I don't know if I have him anywhere because I kind of like, me, I went Ingram and Hunter Henry, which is not working out well. Any shares of Jared Cook? Is he helping you in any place, or David? Either one?
I think I have him maybe 2 spots. Actually, I have him in 1 spot, and then I actually added him on waivers in like a 10-teamer.
Okay.
And, I think that's kind of the name of the game. I know we've talked about this in about every position, but I think the defining position with mixing and matching is tight end. I don't think that, like you said, unless you've got Kelsey or unless you've got Darren Waller of the world or Hawkinson, you're mixing and matching that too. And I think he's a guy that I have not started him every week, but I think he's pretty useful. I wanted to look at his target share here with everybody else on. He's third on the Saints in targets with 32 targets on the season. So I think that's pretty solid in that offense. Catch rate 66% when he's been in there. So, I mean, they're looking for him to get the ball. I mean, games he was out, Josh Hill had a couple catches. Adam Troutman's had a couple catches. But he's clearly the guy at tight end. And, as long as Drew Brees playing well, they got Michael Thomas back. They've got Emmanuel Sanders back off the COVID list. So they're going to be a well-oiled machine, and that might eat into a few targets, but at the same time, it might open up that middle a little bit for Jared Cook to be super useful. So, then again, you got to look at their schedule. I'm not sure who they have coming up, but that offense always has the potential to score points. When we leave Drew Brees for dead, all of a sudden he comes out and just blows our doors off. So I think he's definitely one of the more useful guys on there for sure with the guy because of the guy that's throwing him the ball.
Right.
Now I want to jump in here too while we're talking like tight end strategy, because tight end strategy can never be over discussed. Like I would talk tight end strategy all day, and mostly I'll be talking all day about how you should go tight end early and get a guy like Travis Kelce. Right. But I acknowledge there are people who do not want to go that route. They just simply will not. And there's a point to be made with Jared Cook being 5 for 7 consistency, being 4th overall in consistency. And that's if you are going to go the tight end late route and you're going to punt tight end until the 8th, 9th, 10th late rounds, diversify. Draft 3. If you are going to draft these young upside guys like Irv Smith, do not put all your eggs in the basket. If you paired Irv Smith with Jared Cook, you gave yourself a heck of a insurance policy that's paid off so far. And it just goes to speak that the late round tight end targets, it's a low hit probability. It's 25% or less season after season after season. We think all of them are going to break out, and almost none of them break out. We got T.J. Hawkinson this year, Jonnu Smith. Maybe if you consider Fant was getting drafted pretty high. That's about it. Maybe Eric Ebron. That's about it. There's nothing else that's really hit from the late rounds. So always draft, I would say 3. Draft 3 tight ends late if you're going to go tight end late. And get a young guy. Get one of these veteran guys like Jared Cook, who's maybe not sexy at the time, but offers that known production.
Well, one guy I want to talk about, and I'm going to kind of talk about him like I did with Samuels, is this is a guy that has caught fire the last 4 weeks. Week 6, 7, 8, and 9, 15.7, 12.8, 10.4, 13.2. Who am I talking about, guys? Anybody?
Nope.
Started off the year 2 of 5. Didn't even touch the radar, but there was a lot of love because of the team he went to and who he was replacing on that team.
Hayden Hurst
is now 6 of 9, 67%, 5th in total points. Just 4 weeks ago, he was 2 of 5, nowhere near anything that we thought. I mean, in fact, in week 5, he had 2.8 fantasy points. I mean, I think at that point, he was left for dead by most people.
I dropped him after that.
Right. So all of a sudden, now granted, Ridley's been hurt, Julio was hurt, so kind of like Hawkinson picking up, some slack with some of the injuries to some of the receivers. Noah Fant. Hayden Hurst is now turning his season around because of that. He is starting to click in Atlanta again. Whether or not you can pull off a trade for him, maybe not. By now, most people have him probably figured out he's doing pretty well, but definitely a guy who has turned the season around. As we look down the list, let's just talk about one guy who, if you would have followed your theory outside of Kelsey, and Kittle got hurt, we get that. But Mark Andrews, 8th in total points, 38%. He's a Raven, which I know that's your guy, that's your team. What is going on with Mark Andrews in Baltimore? David, I'll give this one to you because this is your team.
I don't want to say anything bad. I'm going to pass it to Ron.
All right, Ron,
this is my boy, and there's nothing positive to say. There's nothing positive to say.
I mean, I'm more than happy to say something bad just because I do own him in the Kings Classic. Now, on the other team, I do have Darren Waller, so I did go get solid there. But yeah, Mark Andrews, the drop off. I mean, when you look down his last few weeks, and he had some games like this last year, but they were in between games where he showed up. Now, week 1, 5 for 58, 2 scores, awesome, we'll take that. Week 4, 3 for 57, 2 scores, 6 for 56, 1 score. But then he always does this. He always drops these turds in between where he's got 1 for 29, 2 for 21, 3 for 32, 3 for 22. We can't do anything with that. We cannot win with numbers like that. Can't win with them. Can't do it. Okay, so you can't do it. So I don't know.
Schedule gods, please save us here.
I was gonna say, I got a little bit optimistic when David brought up that schedule they've got coming up because like I said, I've got Mark Andrews in that. Of course, I think I also have my boy Harrison Bryant in there, so maybe he can come through and be my hero and save me if Mark Andrews doesn't. But man, it's frustrating to get 3 or 4 points from your starting tight end, especially a guy that you drafted you were thinking you were getting a top 5 consistent tight end. Now, maybe he's got all his 3 for 32s and 1 for 29s out of the way.
Right.
Maybe
now he goes Hayden Hurst on us.
Yeah, maybe we see consistency the rest of the year. I'm hoping that. I know David's hoping that. So especially, amping it up right in time for the Kings Classic playoffs. So we'll see. But man, it's hard to get optimistic about some of these games he's put up.
It's yardage. That's the problem. It hasn't gone over 58 yards once. Like, that is just so concerning. It's so touchdown dependent.
Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah, the main thing. That's the main thing. He's not scoring you a touchdown. He's not doing much for you for sure.
Right. Well, and he's not even getting receptions. I mean, last 3 games, 3-3-2. I mean, the games that he, I mean, if he doesn't score a touchdown, like if he could score a touchdown, then like you said, it'd be fine. And he gets 10. It's not a ton, but it gets him a clutch game and gives you some worthiness. But yeah, I mean, they're just not. I mean, Baltimore's just not putting up the points like they were last year, and they're not the well-oiled machine they were last year. I don't know if it's offensive line. Teams have figured out how to keep Lamar in check. I don't know that a lot. The one thing I did read is that basically they said he's taking a drop. Or, as soon as he gets the ball, he makes one look, and if it's nothing there, he's running. He's not really going through his progressions and trying to get the ball or checking it down. He's just look for a pass, don't see it, run.
And that I haven't watched snap count. Oh, sorry to cut in. The snap count we thought was going to go way up. It's only up to 63%.
For Andrews?
Yeah, 63% on the season.
It's not for lack of targets. I mean, he's been, like for example, Week 3 against Kansas City, he had 8 targets. He only hauled in 3 of them. He had a week with 9 targets, a week with 6. So, I mean, he's looking his way, but he's just not connecting with him for whatever reason.
Right. Yeah, and it's hard to tell if that's bad passes or, he's, not running good routes. It's hard to tell without breaking all of the film down. So, David, that's your job next week. No, I'm just kidding. But, yeah, so it's got to be one of the more frustrating ones, I'm sure. Again, I have Andrews in a few leagues. Like I said, mine was Ingram and Hunter Henry. Those aren't helping much either. Ingram had a decent week this past week, but they've both been around 50% consistent, which is not what I was hoping for from especially a guy like Ingram who was 88% consistent last year before he got hurt. Hunter Henry's always been 75 plus. So hopefully they turn it around too. So we'll just have to wait and see. So I think you were going to say something though, David. Go ahead.
I wasn't, but I'll just speak on how Hunter Henry keeps getting his touchdowns stolen by Donald Parham every week. If that stops, I mean, he's gonna be offense is so good. Like, I feel like he's a buy low. At some point, Hunter Henry's gonna start getting those touchdowns, right? It's not gonna be Donald Parham forever, is it?
I hope not. Gosh, I hope not. Yeah, I know that is. Those. Well, that used to be when Antonio Gates and Hunter Henry were playing. Hunter Henry was stealing Antonio Gates' touchdowns. Now it's the other way. So So anyway, all right. Well, guys, thanks again for being a part of this. David, tell everybody about your great article that's up this week, and then we'll go to Ron and we'll call it a night.
The one thing to take away is Kalen Ballage, guys. I'm willing to talk about it. He's like the elephant in the room right now. Nobody wants to talk about Kalen Ballage and say anything good about him because it'll stain their record forever. My record, let it be stained. I believe if he gets a chance, he might already be better than Justin Jackson and Joshua Kelly. Joshua Kelly's been abysmal. 3.2 yards per carry this year, 1.5 after contact. It's been terrible. Ballage, his first game, according to PFF, they have him with 43 out of his 69 yards coming after contact. He looked good. Offense is a well-oiled machine right now. I think he's worth a flyer.
Beautiful. So waiver wire ads, Big Guy Fantasy Sports. It's up on the site right there. First one as you get on the homepage. Check it out, and you will definitely be helped by this man who's doing very, very well this in his leagues. I'm glad. So we're proud of you, Dave. Good job, man. All right, Rod, tell everybody where they can find you, man, and what's going on.
And please, too, I saw on Twitter that David was up until 3 a.m. writing about Kalen Ballage. He wants to talk to you about Kalen Ballage. Talk to him about Kalen Ballage, for God's sake. He's putting in the work.
Ask your fantasy expert if Kalen Ballage is right for you.
It's awful. It's awful. I can't get this guy out of my head. I'm like, Kalen Ballage, really? Somebody needs to put a little respect.
You're a medical professional. Don't you have pills for this?
Oh, jeez.
Hey, I'm right there with you, though. I'm throwing some fab Kalen Ballage's way, and I'm not proud of the amount, but I need a little help, so we're going to see what happens. So,
all right.
At the Real Monday on Twitter, hit me up there anytime, any questions you got. We'll take them, and if they're about Kalen Ballage, I'll direct you to somebody that knows what they're doing.
Like David.
Like David. And yeah, catch me there. Catch me over Big Guy Fantasy Sports. You know, I had some optimism. Went 2 weeks in a row. We cashed, and then the wheels kind of fell off it this week. But in my defense, when a guy gets hurt on the first play of the game, it's kind of hard for him to score you any fantasy points. So we did get a couple things right for you, and hopefully we'll get it all right for you this coming week, Colby and I. So catch the podcast and the article coming out this week.
Beautiful. And, of course, you'll catch the Prop It Like It's Hot show this weekend for your prop bets on Thrive. Make sure you get there and do that and listen to those and check out the article this weekend. And you can find me, of course, on Twitter at Bob_Lung. Everybody have a great week. David, Ron, thank you so much again. And we will see you next week. As always, take care. Have a great week. God bless. We'll talk to you soon.